What if I told you that the most dangerous weapon ever invented wasn't the nuclear bomb? It wasn't the machine gun, and it wasn't biological warfare. What if I told you that the most destructive force in human history is a simple machine that sits in the basement of a central bank? We have all asked the question. It is the first question every child asks when they learn about poverty. If the government can print money, why don't they just print enough to make everyone rich? It seems so logical. It seems so kind. If money is the problem, surely more money is the solution. But what if I told you that money is not the solution? What if I told you that every time a civilization tries to cheat the laws of economics by printing its way to paradise, it opens the gates to hell? From the marble halls of ancient Rome to the wheelbarrows of Weimar Germany, the story is always the same. It starts with a promise of free wealth. It ends with the collapse of society. The printing press doesn't create prosperity. It creates an illusion. And when that illusion breaks, and it always breaks, the cost isn't paid in paper. It is paid in starvation, in revolution, and in blood. To understand why we cannot print our way out of debt, we have to unlearn everything we have been taught about wealth. We have to look at the machinery of the trap. Welcome to the Financial Historian. Today, we are going to look at why money dies. To understand the lie, we have to strip away the complex jargon of modern finance. Forget quantitative easing. Forget yield curves. Let's go to an island. Imagine you are shipwrecked on a tiny island with 9 other survivors. The island is small, but it has resources. Every day, the 10 of us harvest exactly 100 coconuts. That is our economy. That is our GDP. To make trading easier, we decide to use seashells as money. We collect 100 perfect seashells. The math is beautiful in its simplicity. There are 100 coconuts and 100 shells. Therefore, the price of 1 coconut is 1 shell. The system is stable. If you work hard and harvest more coconuts, you get more shells. The money represents real effort. But one night, while you are sleeping, I find a hidden cave. Inside, I find a stash of 1,000 brand new seashells. Now I have a choice. I could destroy them. Or I could be a hero. I decide to be the hero. I run back to the camp and say, "Good news, I have ended poverty." I give every person 100 new shells. Everyone cheers. Everyone feels rich. We have increased the money supply by 10 times. But what happens the next morning when the market opens? We all rush to buy breakfast. But wait, look at the trees. There are still only 100 coconuts. We didn't print more trees. We didn't print more labor. We didn't print more sun or rain. All we did was print more claim checks. Suddenly, a bidding war starts. I'll give you 2 shells for that coconut. No, I'll give you 10. I'll give you 50. By noon, the price of a coconut isn't 1 shell. It is 10 shells. Are we richer? No, we are exactly where we started, except now the numbers are bigger. We have experienced 1,000% inflation. But here is the dark twist. Here is the part the politicians don't tell you. Who won in this scenario? The person who spent the shells first. If I, the person who found the shells, ran to the market before I told everyone else, I could have bought all 100 coconuts for 1 shell each. I would be a king. By the time you realized there were new shells in the system, the prices would have already gone up. This is the secret. Money printing is not a gift to the poor. It is a transfer of wealth to the people closest to the printer. You might think this is just a theory. You might think we are smarter than that now. But history tells us that human nature never changes. The technology evolves, but the greed remains the same. Let's look at the greatest empire the world has ever known, Rome. Rome didn't have paper money. They had the denarius, a pure silver coin. It was the dollar of the ancient world. It was trusted from England to India because it was real silver. But emperors are expensive. They have wars to fight. They have monuments to build. They have massive welfare programs to keep the mob happy. By the time of Emperor Nero, Rome was running out of silver. Nero couldn't tax the people anymore, they were already squeezed dry, so he had an idea that would eventually destroy the world. He ordered the mint to collect the silver coins, melt them down, and mix in a little bit of cheap copper. He made the coins 90% silver, then 80%, then 70%. Nobody noticed at first. The coins looked the same. But the emperor could now mint more coins with the same amount of silver. He had printed money. For a while, it was a party. The soldiers got paid bonuses. The public games were lavish. The economy boomed. But then the merchants caught on. A baker realized that the coin he was holding wasn't solid silver, it was junk. So he did what any rational person would do. He raised the price of bread to cover the loss. Emperor after emperor repeated the trick. By the year 260 AD, the denarius had gone from 100% pure silver to just 5% silver. It was a bronze coin with a thin wash of silver paint. The result? Hyperinflation. Prices in Rome soared by 1,000%. The economy collapsed. Trade stopped because nobody trusted the money. Soldiers refused to fight because their pay was worthless. The Roman Empire didn't just fall because of barbarians at the gates, it fell because it rotted from the inside. They debased their currency to pay for their present, and in doing so, they sold their future. Fast forward to 1923, the Weimar Republic in Germany. This is the most terrifying example of what happens when the infinite money theory is tested in the modern world. Germany had lost World War I, they owed massive debts and reparations. They had no gold, but they had industrial printing presses. The government decided to print the marks to buy foreign currency to pay their debts. The speed of the collapse is hard to comprehend. In 1914, a loaf of bread cost less than 1 mark. By late 1923, a loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. But numbers are just abstract. Let's look at the human cost. Imagine sitting in a cafe. You order a cup of coffee for 5,000 marks. By the time you finish drinking it, the waiter brings you a bill for 8,000 marks. The price went up while you were sipping. Imagine getting your paycheck. It is a stack of cash so heavy you need a suitcase. You don't walk to the store, you run. You run because you know that in an hour, that suitcase won't buy a loaf of bread. It will only buy a crumb. There were stories of people bringing wheelbarrows full of money to the bakery. They left the wheelbarrow outside for a moment to check the line. When they came back, thieves had dumped the money on the street and stolen the wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow was worth more than the cash. Doctors coined a new mental illness, the zero stroke. It was a nervous condition caused by the dizzying need to calculate trillions and billions for everyday items. People went mad trying to figure out the price of an egg. Society unraveled. The middle class, the people who had saved, the people who did everything right were wiped out. Their life savings, which could once buy a house, now couldn't buy a newspaper. And in that chaos, in that desperate vacuum where money meant nothing, the people looked for a savior. They found a man who promised to restore order. They found Adolf Hitler. The printing press paved the road to the darkest horrors of the 20th century. So why do we keep doing it? If the history books are screaming at us, why do modern central banks print trillions of dollars, euros, and yen? Because of a mechanism called the Cantillon Effect. Named after the 18th century economist Richard Cantillon, this theory explains why inflation is not a fair game. Think of pouring honey onto a saucer. The honey doesn't spread out evenly instantly. It piles up in the middle first, and then slowly oozes to the edges. Money is the same. When the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank prints $1 trillion, they don't drop it from helicopters into your backyard. No, they give it to the banks. They give it to the government. They give it to the massive corporations by buying their bonds. These people, the insiders, get the money first. They get the honey while it is still piled high. They use this new, free money to buy assets. They buy stocks. They buy houses. They buy gold. Because they have all this new cash, the prices of stocks and houses go up. The rich get richer. By the time the money oozes down to you in the form of your wages, the game is over. The prices have already risen. The house you wanted to buy is now double the price. The stocks are at all-time highs. You get the new money last, but you pay the higher prices forever. This is why, in the last 15 years of massive money printing, we have seen the greatest wealth gap in history. It is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. There's another reason they print. It is the perfect crime. Governments love to spend money. They love to fight wars. They love to create social programs, but they hate raising taxes. Raising taxes makes you unpopular. Raising taxes loses elections. So they use inflation as a hidden tax. Think about it. If the government took 10% of the money out of your bank account tonight, you would be furious. You would riot in the streets. But if the government prints money and causes 10% inflation, the result is exactly the same. Your savings can buy 10% less stuff. The purchasing power has been stolen from you. But because the number in your bank account stayed the same, you don't blame the government. You blame the greedy grocery store. You blame the greedy oil company. You blame the supply chain. You blame everyone except the thief who is actually picking your pocket. As John Maynard Keynes, the father of modern economics, admitted, by a continuing process of inflation, governments can confiscate, secretly and unobserved, an important part of the wealth of their citizens. It is theft. But it is theft that is legal, invisible, and devastating. We are living through a historic moment. Since 2008, and accelerated by the crisis of 2020, the world has printed more money than ever before, trillions upon trillions. They tell us it is stimulus. They tell us it is liquidity. They tell us they can control the beast. But the laws of economics are like the laws of physics. You can ignore them for a while, but you cannot break them. Money is not wealth, money is time, money is energy. It represents the hours you worked, the sweat you poured, the value you created. When you print money without work, you are diluting the value of human time. You are stealing the stored energy of the past. We cannot print more money to solve our problems for the same reason a starving man cannot survive by writing the word steak on a napkin and eating it. The paper is not the steak. The money is not the wealth. So what happens next? History tells us there is a tipping point. A moment when the trust breaks. A moment when the public realizes the emperor has no silver in his coins. When that trust breaks, the currency doesn't just lose value. It dies. The best way to protect yourself is to understand the game. To understand that real wealth is not the paper in your wallet. Real wealth is hard assets. Real wealth is skills. Real wealth is things that cannot be printed. The printing press is a powerful machine. It can create a boom. It can build an empire. But it has never, in 5,000 years of history, created a permanent free lunch. The bill always comes due. And the longer we wait to pay it, the higher the price will be. History is a circle. We are just standing at a different point on the wheel. If you want to survive the turn, hit subscribe. I'll show you where to look.